Hey, listen to me. Sometimes all it takes to win or clutch rounds is to break expectations, even when it takes a risky gamble to pull it all off. Take this reroute play Zekken did on the fly in a 2v2 situation recently. At the start of the round, he tried to anchor Seaside with an op and 2 cages. He gets forced back, Phoenix dies, and he whiffs his first shot. Fast forward though, his team gets ulted by Breach and the trades come back and forth until they're left in a 2v2. Zekken uses Neural Theft to confirm the enemy's locations and suddenly decides to back off, activate both of his Cypher traps to create an illusion of his presence there, and calls out that he'll reroute. He wraps around B to flank and pinch the enemy from behind. That would have been the case if the enemy decided to commit to C, but instead, Zekken catches them both by surprise as they attempt to rotate. This could have cost them the round if the enemy were able to overwhelm Raze and take full control of the site. However, since he was quick with his decision and got Raze on the same page immediately, the play became successful. KJ and Breach absolutely did not see it coming as they just up and ran towards Zekken's crosshair. Now, if you guys remember, a similar thing happened to EG and PRX's match back in Champions 2023. Except in Calm's case, it was a 2v1 sitch. This was forever dubbed in Valorant's history as one of the sneakiest flanks of literally all time. So if you ever find yourself in situations like these, where all eyes are really going to be on you, and you still got some time to spare, just remember, when in doubt, reroute. And that, my friends, is the first of 7 techniques pros use to climb ranked.
Now, keep in mind, if you're looking to climb, by far the most important thing for you to master is the fundamentals. This goes far beyond things like crosshair placement and counter strafing too. It also includes things you probably don't even realize that you're doing wrong, like peeking, spacing with teammates, or even just where you choose to stand. The players who are consistently able to drop 30 in their matches, they're all masters of these things. And you could be too now with our Aim God Masterclass that's expertly designed to teach you all of the fundamentals that you need to know in just one course. Our goal is to have this course teach you everything you need to know, which is exactly why we are constantly updating it as users submit feedback. The game, it's always developing, and that's why our website is too. With new courses posted every single month, you can be sure you're always ahead of the curve when it comes to your mechanics. And on top of that, we also offer a rank improvement guarantee. So if you don't climb while using our service, you don't pay. Now we know it sounds insane, but our #1 priority is to be a standing name in the community for years to come. And the only way to do that is to create the best product that we can. Check it out using the link below.
When faced against ultimates and layers of utility dump, it is human nature to turn back and retreat. We have all been there. After all, one of the main purposes of these utilities is to pressure the opposing side, claim space, or turn duels in your favor. However, it does take nerves of steel to actually stand your ground in the face of chaos, standing in there trying to catch an unexpected Valorant timing. Take this VOD from Sassy as an example. In this round, they go for a mid-control, trying to cover both B-Link and Art. Sassy gets the pick on Phoenix after dodging his curveball. Jet eliminates Clove, but Vice trades it out by getting 2 of his own. Clove, through not dead yet, resurrects after killing Tejo, leaving Sassy on his lonesome. At this point, Sassy's left to fend for himself against the resurrected Clove, Vice, and his Steel Garden and Jet. And despite the numbers advantage, the enemy respected Sassy enough to still use that Steel Garden, and hell, I would have too. Under normal circumstances, especially when against multiple people, your instinct would be to run away from the ult and try to seek cover. Unfortunately for the enemy team, Sassy was the man who could not be moved in this game. The enemy just makes the flat-out mistake of giving him 1v1s, allowing Sassy to kill both Clove and Vice consecutively. Now, do take note that this all happened right before the Steel Garden was able to take his primary away. The timing was also perfect as Sassy eliminated Vice shortly before the ult activates. And in true Sassy clutch fashion, he ends up winning the round by patiently waiting out Jet's peek on B-Link. The moral of this story, sometimes it pays to stand your ground rather than always resorting to retreating in the face of danger. And here's another similar scenario that perfectly showcases this gamble style of play from EDG's match against TH back in Champions 2024. Now, at first glance, this 2v1 did seem like an unwinnable situation for Simon, especially since TH also committed the lockdown to retake. But instead of giving up the space, Simon stays put, risks getting detained, and gets rewarded with 2 kills that TH likely had no clue was going to happen. Sure, he gets detained, but not before he cleans up the rest of TH and wins the round. This technique is a nice and unexpected mix-up that could turn the tide on your enemies. Now, it's not something you should do often, but every once in a while, it's enough to break your opponent's expectations. In this next technique, we're going to delve into a direct application of map awareness as seen from Nats playing Teho on his stream. The round starts off with a default play on C and B. Nats, Omen, and Fade fight for control on C Mound, while Raze and Vice create presence on B. After getting tagged by the Teho drone, the enemy chamber overstays his welcome and gets killed by Nats right after his teammate Raze dies to the enemy Teho. Here, we turn our attention elsewhere as the commotion grows bigger on B and Vice falls to Clove. While all of this is happening, try to notice Nat's face here. You can see how he's noting each and every enemy's location on the minimap so he can respond accordingly. Since he saw Teho and Clove's exact spots on B main, he knew exactly where to place his guided salvos to manipulate Teho and Clove's space. And as the door starts to close, he gets a dink on Clove, exclaiming to his team, "Open door, they're low." This resulted in Clove and ISO getting dropped despite Nat's team having a low buy. Fast forward, his team secures the B site and the plant. Nats picks off the Teho, and with another well-placed salvo, Nats forces Jet out of hiding and eliminates him for the ace, ultimately winning the round. If you're using agents like Teho, Breach, Astra, and the like, the minimap is really going to be your best friend. Always pay attention to what goes on so you can take note of everyone's positioning and support your team with well-placed utilities. On to the next. This stream from Tens, we get to see his classic Jet playstyle on Ascent. The match was actually pretty neck and neck, and we can all see Tens' frustration towards stream snipers and bad teammates. Nevertheless, this round showed how on point Tens' fundamentals are when it comes to smoke campers. An early call came out from Reyna saying that it's a fast A. In an attempt to beat the enemy to the positioning, Tens races to heaven, hoping to get an early pick or two. However, Waylay's convergent paths forced him back, allowing the enemy team to close in. Now, despite the utility dump, Tens still did try to go for a quick peek, but no kill was found. But as Tens dashed away, Waylay was spotted for a brief second on that minimap. Thankfully, Reyna spotted this and called it out. So given all this info, try to observe how Tens entered the smoke. First, he pulls out his shorty to gain a close range advantage. Second, he turns his gun barrel away from the smoke to avoid poking out. Next, he swiftly jumps into the smoke to literally get the jump on the Waylay. Waylay's crosshair was a complete mess as Tens blasted her off into oblivion. This is exactly how you should enter smokes, regardless if you have info or whether or not someone's camping there. You can also achieve similar results with a classic right-click if you don't have a shorty, or just straight up turn your gun barrel away from the smoke when entering if you have a rifle in hand. The point is, simply walking forward is going to allow the enemy to spot your gun first, giving them the time to shoot and adjust their crosshair. Now, of course, it is still ideal to respect smokes by either waiting them out if possible or using utilities to clear them out. But if you're pressed for time and you don't want or have any utilities at your disposal, this technique definitely works just as well. There are times when rush executes are necessary to win rounds. Just straight up press W with your team and overwhelm the enemy with a simultaneous push and utility layering. However, there is one technique and discipline that we often take for granted and we don't talk about that much, and that is knowing when it's time to just take a chill pill and reset. In this round from Zekin's stream as Sova on Ascent, he does exactly that. His team decides to push mid from mid-top and tiles. They were able to note Jet's positioning on market and that he's wielding an op to cover mid. However, this doesn't stop them from pushing forward and trying to take mid as well. Unfortunately, their Jet falls victim to that op, and by instinct, Omen tries to respond by peeking to trade their Jet. Instead of allowing this to happen and potentially giving the Opera another prey, Zekin calls out to his team, "I'm droning, chill." This simple call out is enough to reset the team and let your utilities help you scale safely. Zekin was able to tag Jet, forcing him to back off and reposition, while KO follows up with null command to put pressure on the defenders nearby. A scuffed back-and-forth trade comes out, but the layering of utility that came from Zekin's team gave them the advantage and the space that they needed to claim the B site. Zekin then claims the two remaining players, successfully winning the round. In hindsight, this may sound a little bit too simple, But sometimes it's the little things that matter most in situations like these. If Zekken hadn't called out what he wanted to do to throw off that Opper, they could have lost another teammate or two, denying them a man advantage and that person's utilities. Instead of dry peeking the Opper, one can easily take it back to the basics by simply just utilizing their agent's abilities to put pressure on that defender. And I'm going to be honest, I struggled a little bit by putting this one in here because I realize how ridiculously easy this is. But utilities are there for a reason, and if you're not taking advantage of them to allow your team to scale properly, you're practically just throwing the game. All right, next up we have a clip from Energy's Ethan's VOD on KO, and, well man, this was an absolute treat to watch. The technique Ethan showcased here is still relevant to how you communicate with your team while playing a support role. This round in particular showed how synergized their team really is, all thanks to how Ethan called the shots on their side execute. Since they were on an eco round, Ethan's team starts things off just a little bit slow by getting info and noting the enemy's defensive setup. Unfortunately, their jet dies to an outlaw, but this doesn't faze the team and just continues to slow default A. Right before they execute, Ethan calls out the enemy's locations and which utils he's going to use for them to peek off of. Lo and behold, the execute was beautifully done, and even though Ethan got picked off, two of his teammates were able to trade him, giving them space on the site with some guns to claim. With a few more successful picks, Ethan and his team win the round despite the gun diff. Ethan even had to commend himself for how well he communicated with his team to create an opening against an opposing team with better guns. More than a technique, this is an absolute necessary trait that helps supportive agents provide more value to the team with utilities alone. It can be as simple as noting the enemy's defensive setup, letting your team know where you're throwing your utility and which areas it covers. All right, last one here. In the same match, there is one more nifty technique Ethan shows that may seem a little bit trivial. This was another one that was hard to put in here, but actually it matters in the bigger picture of the whole round. And this technique is something I have witnessed in Gold Diamond all the time. Take a look at what happens in this round from Ethan's team. We're going to jump right into the middle of the round where Ethan's team calls for a rotate, saying that B's open. This was after a scuffed back and forth with the enemy team, who were supposedly on a half buy. Again, take note here, Ethan's team had a full buy, while the enemy team is on a half buy. So here, Viper had already made it deep into Snowman and were just practically waiting for Ethan to grab the spike and follow suit. But as Ethan makes his way through B main, notice what he does to his fallen teammate's rifle. He cycles it forward, bringing it closer to sight before planting the spike. Now, what exactly does this mean, and why does this matter? So let's recall what info we had prior to this. The enemy team is on a half buy with marshals and sheriffs. Before the rotate was called, Ethan's teammate KJ got picked off, but he only dropped a guardian. Knowing that the enemy team didn't have proper rifles, he placed the free phantom closer to sight. The tech, it served two purposes. One, it denies a free rifle to be picked up by the enemy team. Two, if the enemy team decides to flank and pick that phantom up, they're going to be revealing their position. Now let's fast forward and see how that round unfolded. Ethan finds Jet on Snowman, still wielding the Marshal. He then finds Reyna from Yellow, likely indicating that he flanked. Ethan eliminates Jet, and at this point, with Viper's snakebite, there is no time left to defuse. Unfortunately, Ethan falls to the Reyna due to a fake rope maneuver, but the round still goes their way. Now, did you notice what gun Reyna had here? It was the Guardian he picked up from the KJ back on A. And since he came from flank, he didn't grab the Phantom to avoid blowing his cover. Because of how Ethan positioned the rifle close to sight, it would be detrimental to pick up and forced him to fight with a Guardian head-on. Again, it's not too big of a play, but these tiny details matter in securing rounds and playing better as a team. This could also be done by throwing extra rifles from fallen teammates straight off the map, specifically when the enemy team is on an eco round. This denies the enemy team a chance to even the playing field, forcing them to stick with the eco guns they already have.
All right, though, guys, before we wrap this up, let's tell you a little bit more about SkillCapped. So we offer a 5-division rank up guarantee, and we think that's a pretty crazy thing to offer. It's kind of like a gym membership guaranteeing you that you're gonna get ripped. Your local gym would probably go bust if they offered you that. But not us, because we've offered this for years because our service really does work. It works so well, in fact, that we're able to produce by far the largest catalog of premium Valorant guides on the internet. We add new courses every month with over 1,000 guides curated into over 50 courses. No one can compare. We also have a direct line of communication with subscribers in our Discord so that you can get connected immediately to some of the best players in the game who will respond to every question you ask. Sign up today for as little as $6.99 a month if you're serious about improving your game. So that's going to be all for this one today, everyone. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.